let's take a look and move on to task 11.4, multiple backup gateways for each site. So if you remember from a previous module, actually just the very previous module, module 10, for globalization in general, we did actually have a backup gateway, backup route pattern, and a specific or explicitly configured backup route list with very explicit gateway. I've already deleted that. Let me pull up the route list. I've already deleted the extra route list that pointed to headquarters and then standard local route group for the purpose of the startup configs for this task, whenever you load the startup configs for this module. And I deleted the extra route pattern. So currently there is only one route pattern, and it points to one route list, and that route list, as the name implies, only has the route group of standard local route group, which we all know goes back to the calling party that looks at their device pool, whoever was placing the call, and other than MOH and default, which we're not using for phones. Branch 1 has the route group for branch 1. 2 has the route group for branch 2, and headquarters has the route group for headquarters. So now we're told to do something a little different. Previously, we had a backup route group based on a separate route pattern and a separate route list. And we also had to have a separate partition for the dialed number, and it just got a little bit more complicated than it needs to. So let's take a look. This task instructs us to configure the cluster so that whenever anyone dials any site, or sorry, at any site, dials any PSTN number, that the call first tries to route out that site's local gateway, but then if that first option fails, to route out either one of the other site's gateways, and finally if that second option fails, to try to route out of the unused gateway. So we want two backup route groups, or two backup gateways, for every possible local call. And we're not permitted, if we look down at the bottom, to create any additional translation patterns, or route lists to fulfill the requirements of this task. Now, I also note here that while we would, of course, never route all calls out every gateway in a live production environment, especially like emergency calls, they should only ever be routed out of their local gateway. You don't need to worry about that for the sake of this task. So I realize that this isn't exactly production level. We would probably have another bit of requirement for a production level, but I'm just trying to explain the concept behind the task, the idea, and then it could be taken from there. We're not permitted to create any additional translation patterns, route patterns, or route lists. So how can we possibly create backup gateways? Well, if everyone dials their PSTN pattern, which are the translation patterns, those globalize the number and forward those on via CSS partition matching to this single route pattern. The single route pattern points everyone to the one and only route list, which has standard local route group, and we're told that we can't change that, then everyone is going to use standard local route group, right? Well, what does standard local route group actually inform the calling party? Does it inform them what gateway to use? No, we just went over it, or we just showed it. It informs them not what gateway to use, but what route group to use. Let's go have a look at the route groups themselves. We weren't told we can't create multiple or additional route groups, but that wouldn't do us any good even if we did create additional route groups, because I can't assign more than one route group to a device pool under the local route group option. What I can do is add multiple gateways. Now, I've already got, let's say we're on branch 1, so I've got this H323 gateway. I could add, let's say, branch 2 and then corporate headquarters SIP trunk. I could add that, right? Now, you have historically probably been instructed and read and come to the understanding that we should never have multiple gateways or trunks in a route group unless they are at the same site and perform the same function. Well, why was this? What was the reason? Well, first off, it was this little idea of digit manipulation, that within route groups, or actually more specifically, route groups within route lists, so let me bring this interface here. Within a given route list, we would have a route group, and we would have route list details. So this is, if I click on this, digit manipulation for calling or call-ed or both within the route group within the route list. So it's digit manipulation specific to any and all gateways that happen to be a part of the route group, and it's doing that per route list. Now, we could have different digit manipulation for the same route group added to a different route list, but we cannot have different digit manipulation for the individual gateways within that route list, at least not using this screen at this stage. So it was with the advent of CUCM 7 and the calling, and more specifically called party, more importantly, called party transformation patterns, and those being pushed out to the edge, the egress gateway, the ones we said are doing all the magic that we don't need to touch anymore, that basically make the idea of not having multiple gateways within a route group, at least for the purposes of digit manipulation, makes that point moot. It's null. It doesn't really matter anymore. It's null and void. Now, there was another reason, and it's on this page, and it was the distribution algorithm. So circular. So by default, it's going to not always try to go out my local route group, the first one ordered here, because these are in an order. It's going to go out my local route group first, or I should say the gateway local to me, the calling party on branch 1, first, and then second it's going to go to branch 2, and third it's going to go to corporate headquarter trunk. So the fourth call will get around to my local gateway again. But I can change that to top down, which basically says always go out this first gateway unless it's unavailable. Resources are busy, gateway's down, whatever, then try the next one. So if I do this, save, and because I've opened multiple tabs, all gateways are gone. I don't think they actually are. Here. Top down, very important. Say save, update was successful. We'll go back and update branch 2. We'll just have everything go in kind of a fashion, not circular for the distribution algorithm, circular in terms of top down for the distribution algorithm, but circular in terms of corporate headquarter gateway, then that will back up to branch 1 and have tertiary. Here we're at branch 2 right now, so it will be primary, go to corporate headquarters, and then branch 1. Circular in terms of a backup strategy. Okay, so very important that we switch it to top down. But once we do that, we realize digit manipulation isn't the issue. That's been pushed out to the egress, to the edge. And distribution algorithm can be changed, so there's no reason why we can't have multiple gateways or trunks with very different sites, very different carriers, even if they're at the same site or different sites, very different specific attributes to them, but all in the same route group, and therefore all able to be triggered by that calling device and their local route group, their device pool local route group. Now, the only thing that becomes important, and actually has always been important, and we said it a previous task, but let's just verify. Recorded properly. Sometimes few settings have issues. Is the stop routing on user busy and unallocated number flag. Default of true, but they have been set properly to false. So if there was a problem and we did need to roll back to another gateway, if it was H323 or SIP, by the way, either one, then stop routing on unallocated or user busy flag could prevent that from rolling to the next gateway. All right, so we've set up our configuration. It was very simple. Let's clear off our gateways. Okay, we've got no scroll back buffer. Now we need to try routing a call. And since we've changed it, let's try primary routing of the call before we route a backup call. So let's try 911 won't work because it'll route out the local, but ultimately wouldn't route out another country, and we wouldn't. Not a good example. So we'll try. Let's call the PSTN line. Say from corporate headquarters, we're going to call the Amsterdam number. So we'll dial. Go off hook. Dial 9-011-31 703 7333. Hash to terminate interdigit timeout, and we see that that call did route out the local gateway, right? No other gateway, so everything's fine there. Go ahead and clear off this router just so that it's easy to distinguish. And now let's go ahead and shut down our controller. That will definitely take down any ability to route calls out this gateway. Do show status, TEI assigned. I'm not even sure that that's not layer 1 status is shut down. Okay. So we'll clear off our gateways again, and we'll try just a simple redial. Okay. Not enough bandwidth. And this is the reason that the task probably should have stated it earlier, but the THO task says don't forget to reset locations from the task. All right, so go back. Route out another gateway if we don't have enough bandwidth to get to that gateway. Okay, so let's try this call again. Let's bring up our gateways behind us and hit redial. And what gateway does it go out of? The next gateway on our list. And it's properly formatted. It's going to be formatted in the same as our primary headquarter gateway. But tear down that call, and let's see what happens. Shut down the next gateway. Shut down. Clear off our branch 1 gateway. Dial. Can't be going out branch headquarters or branch 1. It is going out and properly formatted. It's a local 7-digit call, and in fact that's what the originating party, what they see on their display as the called party, and it's ringing just perfectly. And note, we should probably note, if I'll hit redial here briefly, the display. Okay, I'm on line 3, so this is emulating a PSTN phone in the Netherlands. It's seeing the call come with the calling party's country code. As soon as I go and no shut this controller back on the corporate headquarter gateway, I won't. So we've got multiple frames established. Call routes back out local here. It's still showing up properly. Now what would happen if we had tried to call a local number? Let's try this. Let's clear this gateway off. Went back out the proper gateway. Let's try to call 9206-501-5111. Local call. So the calling display shows 10 digits only because as it went out corporate headquarters, sorry, that's call head. There's the calling. We had a translation pattern from last module that formatted calling party properly. Call, and again, we'll shut down the controller. Branch 1 is already shut down. So call is going to have to go out the branch 2 gateway. We'll just do a simple redial. Call is going out branch 2. Now it is showing it from 10 digits, and it should be showing it from 11. Now, this is probably something that is basically something that would just have to be dealt with a calling party egress translation, because it's still hitting the same translation pattern or PSTN pattern, which doesn't tell it to use a calling party prefix of 1 before the external phone number mask. Out to the gateway, well, first of all, the route group checking which gateways are active, that it chooses the gateway, and then it's when it gets out to the actual gateway in CUCM, called party is manipulated to work properly, but the calling party was already set from the translation patterns calling party transformation. So what we could do to change this, although it wasn't part of our task, is we could say the egress gateway being, let's say, branch 2, has a calling party pattern CSS assigned to it. I just don't think that we have anything. We've got calling party transformations, but they are all in the phones. So we could create a new one. And remember, we're matching, in this case, we're matching external phone number mask, or the results of the translation patterns, external phone number mask. So we could say if it comes from 206, 501, 1XXX, partition of branch 2, not phones, but calling party transformation, whoops, the gateway for branch 2. Then still use the calling party transform mask. Actually, all we would have to do here is really just prefix a 1. If this works properly. Previously, the call had come in with calling party of 10 digits. Let's hit redial. And sure enough, now it's coming in with a 1. Wanted it to show up properly so that the PSTN caller would see it and know at least, you know, what country it's coming in, and not just think that that was 20 like their local area code, but had 1 too many digits, which could be a misperception. Then we can format everything properly. Go through and add this, copy the same thing, 10 digits in general, but I don't think we could. If we did do it for 10 digits in general, it would match 020. 512-602, 2XXX, copy pattern, but without the plus /+, and this is one gateway, (020), and we would prefix also copy that to our calling party. Okay, so for US sites, branch 1 and corporate headquarters, we're matching the external phone number mask for local calls and for national calls for the Amsterdam gateway. And then for our Amsterdam gateway, we're matching the 2 area codes for local calls, the 2 external phone number masks for local calls. They'll be formatted properly. Right, so let's try the call in another fashion. Let's up the controllers. Got multiple frames established there, and we should certainly still have established here as well as MGCP registration. Good. So let's clear off all the gateways. Try calling from Amsterdam. Call to a so maybe 010-704-7444. Okay, and this call is going out the local gateway primarily. We're seeing 020-703-3001, which is what we'd expect to see. Go ahead and end that call. And branch 2, we'll just say no MGCP. Right, so that will tear that gateway down. And I think if it went in a circular fashion, it should go out the corporate headquarter gateway. Sometimes even after I say no MGCP, it still shows multiple frames established on ISDN status show, but if we do a show CCM, there are no calls that are going to come out here. Okay, so if we redial that same number, we'll notice that it's going out 1, and because we put the calling party transformation pattern in, see that the PSTN phone sees it with the carrier code. Now again, it would have worked without that calling party transformation pattern. The call would have worked just fine. The person out on the PSTN might not have known where the call came from because it said 020, and that might not make sense, but we didn't have to do anything to affect the functionality or to get the call to route properly. We only did it for display value, which is important, but the point was that the called party pushed out to the egress gateways handles everything, and we can have multiple backup gateways per route group. All right, so we haven't tried branch 2. Branch 1. Let's shut the controller down on branch 1. Okay, our branch 2 controller, that only leaves headquarters. So although if we go back, take a brief look at our route group for branch 1, where we are getting ready to make a call out of, it tries to go out its own local branch 1, then the branch 2 office, and then corporate headquarters. So we're going to finally test the tertiary gateway within a route group. We'll pull up here a call to, let's say, national number, so 9-011-31-10-704-7444. hash. All's coming proper. It's formatted proper. Routed out the tertiary gateway of the headquarter, tertiary based on the standard local route group. Go ahead and end that call. Okay, so let's make sure, I guess that one was already no shut. Let's no shut this and up. Okay, so we showed how we can have multiple backup gateways for every site while not having to add very much, if any, complexity or configuration, maybe a little bit of calling party digit manipulation. Would be certainly the scalable way to move forward.